In 2025, with Trump back in the White House, the U.S. immigration system is changing fast, and for millions of people across the globe, it's not changing in their favor. Because while the headlines focus on walls, visas, and border patrol, what most people don't know is that there's already a quiet plan in motion. A plan to ramp up deportations across a specific list of countries. And this time, it's not just about Mexico or Central America. The Trump administration has been quietly reactivating deals, pressuring foreign governments, and fast-tracking deportation pipelines for certain nations, some of which might surprise you. We're not talking about random removals. We're talking about targeted deportations, focusing on people from these 15 countries flagged for overstays, criminal charges, or simply because their governments are seen as easy to negotiate with. Whether you're an immigrant, have family abroad, or are just trying to understand what's coming next, this isn't a video you can afford to skip. Stay with me until the end, because the country at number 3 is the one almost no one saw coming, but it could affect thousands of people already living here legally. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We cover what most people won't tell you, and this story is moving fast. Now let's jump into the list. 15. Guatemala. For years, Guatemala has been one of the top countries for deportations from the U.S., but under Trump's renewed focus on immigration control, that number is expected to rise again, and fast. Why? Because Guatemala is one of the few governments that agreed to take back deportees quickly under Trump's earlier administration. In 2019, the U.S. even signed a safe third country agreement with Guatemala, forcing asylum seekers to seek refuge there instead of the U.S. Now, with Trump back, those same agreements are back on the table, and Guatemalan nationals, especially those with expired visas or pending asylum claims, are at the front of the line for removal. And here's the brutal truth. Even people without criminal records who are simply waiting on paperwork are finding themselves in deportation proceedings. In 2025, Guatemalan families living quietly in the U.S. may be among the first to feel the impact of Trump's immigration reset. 14. Honduras. Just like Guatemala, Honduras has become a key part of Trump's immigration strategy. The reasoning? The U.S. already has fast-track deportation agreements with the Honduran government, making it easy to round up and remove people without long legal fights. Honduras has one of the highest rates of people overstaying visas or crossing the border without documentation. But here's what's changing. More interior enforcement. Under Trump's return, ICE isn't just focused on new border crossers. They're now going after people who have been living here for years, people with jobs, kids in school, and deep community ties. In places like Texas, Florida, and California, Honduran communities are already reporting quiet sweeps and detentions, with less warning, fewer delays, and little chance to appeal. For many Hondurans, the message from Trump's White House is clear. Your time here may be running out. 13. El Salvador. El Salvador has been on the deportation list for decades, but in 2025, it's becoming a bigger priority than ever. Trump's administration has long claimed that MS-13 and other gang activity from El Salvador are national security threats. And now, that claim is being used to justify wider deportation sweeps, even targeting people with no criminal background at all. Salvadoran immigrants with temporary protected status, TPS, are especially at risk. In 2018, Trump tried to cancel TPS for Salvadorans, only for the courts to block it. But with a second term and a new Supreme Court lineup, many expect those protections to be stripped away. The result? Up to 250,000 Salvadorans living legally in the U.S. today could face deportation in the coming months. And with fast-track deportation agreements in place, the process could move a lot faster than people expect. 202, Nicaragua. Under Trump's second term, Nicaragua has re-entered the spotlight, not just as a foreign policy concern, but as a top deportation target. Here's why. The current Nicaraguan government, led by Daniel Ortega, is considered one of the most authoritarian regimes in Latin America. That means fewer protections, less international oversight, and a greater willingness to accept deported nationals, no questions asked. That's exactly what Trump wants. Countries that won't push back. In 2025, ICE has already resumed deportation flights to Nicaragua, despite worsening political conditions. And because many Nicaraguans fled persecution, these deportations aren't just about immigration. They're about sending people back into danger. What's worse, some of the Nicaraguans being removed still have active asylum cases, but under Trump's tightened enforcement, those cases are being denied faster or dismissed for technicalities. Nicaragua may not make headlines, but on the deportation lists, it's rising fast. 11. Mexico. You might think deporting to Mexico is nothing new, but in 2025, Trump is doing more than just sending back border crossers. He's expanding removals to include long-term Mexican residents inside the U.S. These include people who overstayed work or tourist visas, long-time undocumented residents with no criminal record, even DACA recipients whose status expired or was never renewed. Mexico remains the #1 destination for U.S. deportation flights, but Trump's team is now pressuring the Mexican government to take more flights, more frequently, and with fewer delays. That means faster removals even for people with pending cases or deep community ties. And under new federal guidelines, ICE is no longer prioritizing based on criminal background. Now any undocumented Mexican national is fair game. For families living in mixed-status households, the fear is back. And in 2025, Mexico isn't just a border issue. It's ground zero for deportation volume. 10. Brazil. Brazil might come as a surprise, but it's quickly climbing the list of countries Trump is targeting for removals. Why? 2 reasons. 1. The U.S. has seen a spike in visa overstays from Brazilian nationals, particularly in states like Florida and Massachusetts. 2. Trump's administration sees Brazil's new government as willing to cooperate quietly with removals, especially to maintain diplomatic trade ties. In 2025, ICE data shows a sharp rise in enforcement actions involving Brazilian immigrants, even those who entered legally but fell out of status later. Unlike in the past, these cases aren't getting leniency. People are being detained at airports during routine traffic stops or flagged through immigration databases when trying to renew documents. And because many Brazilians don't fit the typical profile of deportation targets, they're often middle class, employed, and low profile. These removals are flying under the radar. The result? A silent increase in removals, and a growing fear inside Brazilian American communities. 9. Colombia. Colombia has quietly become one of the fastest growing sources of visa overstays in the U.S. over the last few years, especially with tourists and student visas. Trump's immigration team sees this as an easy target. Deportation flights to Colombia have already increased in 2025, with ICE focusing on overstayed tourist visas, expired student permits, and rejected asylum claims. Colombian nationals who were once seen as low priority are now getting flagged and removed quickly. Even without criminal records, the policy is simple. Overstayed your welcome, you're gone. 8. China. China might not seem like a deportation priority, but under Trump's administration, politics is playing a big role. Ongoing U.S.-China tensions over trade, technology, and espionage have turned Chinese nationals into a quiet target group for removals. Particularly vulnerable are international students with expired visas, researchers accused of violating visa terms, workers overstaying tourist or exchange programs. ICE is now cooperating with Homeland Security to flag and track overstays from China, not just for immigration violations, but under the claim of national security concerns. India. Indian nationals make up one of the largest groups of legal migrants in the U.S., but they also represent a significant share of visa overstays, particularly on tourist and student visas. Trump's immigration enforcement is now cracking down on expired H-1B holders, as well as student visa overstays, with little room for grace periods or paperwork delays. And with India's government keeping diplomatic ties open, The U.S. faces very few obstacles in deporting Indian nationals quickly. In 2025, even overstays of just a few months are being met with detention and fast-track removal. 6. Nigeria. Under Trump's 2025 immigration policies, Nigeria remains high on the deportation list. Why? Two reasons. 1. Nigeria consistently ranks among the top countries for visa overstays. 2. The U.S. government claims difficulty verifying documents, which fast-tracks removals. ICE is now focusing on Nigerians with expired student, tourist, and work visas, especially in states like Texas and Maryland, where Nigerian communities are large and visible. Even those waiting on asylum decisions are finding themselves deported before their cases are heard. 5. Jamaica. Jamaica has long been on the radar for deportation enforcement, but Trump's new term has pushed removals higher than ever. The focus? Tourist visa overstays. Minor legal violations like unpaid traffic tickets or lapsed documentation. What's especially harsh? Even long-term Jamaican residents with U.S.-born children are now being detained and deported at higher rates, with very little warning. The Trump administration is leaning on Jamaica's government to take back more deportees faster and without drawn-out negotiations. 4. Haiti. Haiti remains one of the most vulnerable targets for U.S. deportations, despite the fact that Haiti is in the middle of one of the worst humanitarian crises in the Western Hemisphere. Trump's immigration policy is prioritizing deportations here. TPS, Temporary Protected Status, for Haitians is under active review again in 2025, and thousands could lose legal protections overnight. ICE has resumed deportation flights to Port-au-Prince, even as Haiti's government struggles with gang control and basic infrastructure failure. The justification? Trump's team argues that removal agreements are in place, regardless of conditions on the ground. 3. Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic has quietly become one of the top deportation destinations for the U.S., and under Trump's new term, that trend is only accelerating. Why? Because like Guatemala and Honduras, the Dominican government has existing agreements with the U.S. for fast-track deportation flights. In 2025, ICE is focusing on Dominicans with expired tourist or work visas, rejected asylum claims, minor legal violations. Even long-term residents who've lived in the U.S. for years without issues are now finding themselves at risk of removal, sometimes without the chance to appeal. And because many Dominicans are part of mixed-status families, these deportations are breaking up households quietly, without headlines. Venezuela. Venezuela remains one of the most politically unstable countries in the Western Hemisphere. Millions have fled the country due to dictatorship, hyperinflation, and humanitarian collapse. But that hasn't stopped Trump's immigration team from pushing to resume deportations to Venezuela, even though human rights groups are warning against it. In 2025, Temporary Protected Status, TPS, for Venezuelans is back under review, with early signs that the Trump administration wants to cancel protections and restart removals. Even Venezuelans with no criminal history, working legal jobs, or waiting on asylum are at risk of deportation, sometimes back into dangerous, unstable conditions. Number 1. Ecuador. Ecuador might surprise some people at the top of this list. But here's what's happening. Visa overstays from Ecuadorian nationals have quietly risen sharply in the last few years, especially with tourist and student visas. Trump's immigration team has flagged Ecuador as a priority partner because the government is willing to accept quick turnaround deportation flights. In 2025, ICE is targeting Ecuadorians with overstayed visas, denied asylum requests, incomplete paperwork, or expired work permits. And with Ecuador's current economic struggles, thousands who fled seeking better opportunities in the U.S. are now being sent back with little warning. For Ecuadorian families who thought they were safe, the risk of deportation is higher than it has been in years. So what's the big picture here? This isn't random. It's not just about border crossers. It's a calculated list of countries, chosen because their governments will take people back quickly, without legal challenges. And in 2025, Trump's immigration machine isn't slowing down. It's speeding up. If your country's on this list, or if your visa isn't 100% secure, the time to prepare is right now. Because these removals aren't loud. They're not making headlines. They're happening in silence, in the middle of work shifts, traffic stops, renewal appointments. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these countries surprised you the most? Do you think this deportation wave will stop at these 15? Or is it just the beginning? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe if you want to stay informed on how immigration policy is really playing out, not just what the headlines say. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.